another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Now, as you can see, I am joined by the great Tim Masso. How you doing, man?
I'll settle for the good Tim Masso. I'm doing great, Fed.
Well, I know you're going on a trip, and we'll give you more details on that tomorrow, guys, but you're going on a trip, so I wanted to get this opportunity to get you on camera with me so we could do another one of these little lists we like to do.
Absolutely. We got some favorites today, and what is the topic?
Exactly. Well, we're going to go with our three favorite, so 6 total, our 3 favorite dive watches.
All right, lead off, Fed. What you got for me?
Well, dive watches is the most important and probably most requested and purchased segment in the watch industry right now, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, the ultimate watch in the mind of 90% of people is Rolex, and the ultimate Rolex is the Submariner. So let's start with that fact.
All right, so I'm going to start with my favorite dive watch of all time, and I'm actually wearing it right now. It is the Bond Dial Seamaster 300, but I also love the new ceramic version with the coaxial movement and the updated looks. But I think this is a fantastic watch at a fantastic price, and I know you own one as well.
Yeah, I own one too. Honestly, if he hadn't chosen that, I would have. It had to be in the show. By the way, scandal, no Submariner content in this episode.
Yes,
but that's a great watch at a perfect size, 41.5. Very thin, like 11 millimeters, wears great with everything, feels great on the wrist, and frankly, they're as tough as nails.
Tough as nails. It's got the most comfortable bracelet out there. Yes, it doesn't have a glide lock clasp. And frankly, I don't actually know that many people that would dive with a watch as expensive as this, even though it's by far not anywhere near the most expensive watch on our list.
Well, put it this way, I've taken a dive wearing that watch. I was on a bike at the time. The watch is tough. Don't sell it short. And I'll add this. Think about the Omega Seamaster throughout its entire existence, going back to the very first diving grade Seamaster, 1957.
Yeah.
Now, we've hardly ever seen the watch keep the same look and the same case and the same essential details for even 10 years. And that model has, in one form or another, has been in the catalog since the early 90s, and that is enduring. That's unique in the Seamaster history.
And I'm going to throw something else in there. Anything that Pierce Brosnan can wear as James Bond, it's okay in my book.
Fair enough. Honestly, folks of a certain generation, guys, identify with Pierce Brosnan. It's just going to be one of those generational things.
Trust me, I love Roger Moore. I even love Timothy Dalton, but Pierce Brosnan was my Bond from my childhood.
Well, Timothy Dalton did wear a transitional Submariner. So we keep coming back to the Submariner, even though there is not one in this show.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Okay, so let me take a swing at one of my favorites.
Sure.
Okay. So Pita, Barcelona, small company. Now, this is run by the Jimenez family, about 100 to 120 watches a year, built to order, highly customizable. Their model, Steam, is possibly the best high horology watch for the money. Not just the best dive watch for the money, but when you're talking under $6,000 US for a handmade dive watch with a magnetic setting system, 2,000 meter water resistance, your choice of case materials, dials. You can even specify which direction the bezel turns, depending on whether you want a count up or a count down.
Oh wow, that's pretty customizable.
It's a pretty thoughtful kind of twist in the bezel design that I would never have even considered to ask for if they hadn't suggested it.
Fair enough.
41 millimeters, guys, you can wear it with anything, plus AHCI luminary. The senior Jimenez is a member of the same AHCI, the elite ranks of 34 ultra haute de gamme watchmakers, alongside the Carrie Voudelanens of the world, the Philippe Dufour of the world, the Marco Lang. So this is an incredible watch of stature, in addition to being a great design and a great diver.
And it's a little funky because I think, isn't a lot of the case or the watch machined in Barcelona, Spain?
Yeah, it's Barcelona, Spain, Pita Barcelona, Anacito Jimenez and Son. They're making these watches literally on a component-for-component basis as needed. They keep no inventory.
And let me ask you this, Tim, because I don't know the brand well, but I remember the brand popping up in the blogs about 2 to 3 years ago, but I haven't heard much from them since. Has anything really changed?
You know, they produce very few watches per year and their order books are full. They're one of those companies, like when I bought my custom bike, Bill Holland out of San Diego had been building bikes for about 40 years. He'd never had advertising, and up until the year before I bought my bike in 2012, he'd never even had a website.
Okay.
So when you're that kind of artisan, you can have that kind of word of mouth and get by.
Fair enough. Well, it's good to know. Pita Barcelona, very interesting, man. I love
And
it.
a great deal. 6,000 US bucks, guys.
Well, and it's tough. You can't really find them pre-owned too often, though, because they made so few. All right, so for me, well, guys, you know I love Panerai, and Panerai's they were originally created for diving. Now I'm going to go with a more modern dive style Panerai, one with a rotating bezel.
Yes.
And I'm going to go PAM 25. The titanium waffle dial rotating bezel submersible.
That's a great choice. What drew you to it?
It looks so tough. You've got this chunky Panerai Luminor 44 millimeter case with the crown guard, and then you've got this super imposing, larger than your average rotating bezel with no insert. It's like machine carved or stamped.
It's like a vintage diving helmet on your wrist.
It looks steampunk, if that makes any sense.
It does. I mean, I think that's where the whole idea of that big brass diving helmet that I was kind of evoking comes from.
Yeah.
Some piece of 19th century submersible survival gear on your wrist, even though obviously Panerai, it recalls the mid-century military era when they were a supplier to the Italian Navy, but they don't restrict themselves to that. They've built the Bronzo, which has no roots in history other than
at all.
Broad, coherence or sort of a congruence between the idea of a nautical Panerai and bronze being a nautical material. Throw logic to the wind. Panerai is purely emotional, and the PAM 25 is that to a T.
And it is emotional because it's a particular price point. It's not the most haute horlogerie movements, at least in this watch.
It's a tough movement.
But it's a very, very tough movement. It looks tough as nails. I love the fact that I can change out straps to, if I'm actually going in the water, but put rubber on it. Or if I just want the look, you put a really cool distressed calf. It's a very playful watch that evokes a certain spark in me, and I'm a Panerai lover. I have to put one on the list.
Yeah, and it has a funny backstory because it came out in 1998, which was really only about 18 months after the Vendôme Group, controlled by what would later become Richemont, bought Panerai. And for it to come out that quickly, there had to be some sort of previous plans for something along the lines of a submersible Panerai, and Sylvester Stallone, who's well known as a patron of Panerai from their unknown days in the 1994 to 1995 period, he really helped to popularize the brand, but he wanted to go one step further. After he got the branded dials for the Slytech watches, plans had actually been drawn up with the Italian owners of Panerai to create a Slytech watch brand based on the Panerai designs, and one of the designs for the stillborn Slytech watch company was the watch that became the Submersible.
Oh man, you just reminded me. I need a Slytech in my collection. I have a Daylight, which is named after the Sylvester Stallone movie Daylight.
The movie he was filming in Rome when he found Panerai
was called Daylight. But then there's also the Slytech watches. So I own a Radium Ear, I own a Luminor, I own a Daylight.
Yes.
Slytech is what's missing.
Okay, well, again, not an easy play, but there are a couple of hundred of the original cast of Daylight, friends and family, Sylvester Stallone, Slytechs out there, so you may have to double up on another Slytech. Get the real Slytech before you get the Daylight.
Fair enough. Well, Tim, what are you thinking for your number 2?
Okay, my second watch is a big grand green chronograph. This watch, by virtue of color alone, gets my vote. But you'll remember last year, AP came out with colorful diving chronographs in the Royal Oak Offshore line. Previously, you'd had the diver and you'd had the chronograph in the Offshore line, but never an overlap of the two. But the reference 26703 ST not only Siamese to those two bloodlines. What it also did was combine ridiculous colors not seen in the Offshore family since the late 90s. And I choose the Geneva Boutique limited edition, 50 pieces in electric green. That's my diver.
Correction, that is not electric green, that is mosso green.
Okay. Like I said, I'd be satisfied to be the good Tim Masso. He says I'm the great. And now I've got my own color.
Listen, you're by far the biggest advocate for this color. From your pick of the JLC Amvox to the Gerald Genta pick to your glasses, everybody knows that's mosso green.
I've got a bike in that color too, so maybe you're right.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that, actually.
I take it to the next level, guys. Okay, so great watch, 50 pieces, Geneva only. I don't know where that green comes from, but I approve. And I'll be honest with you, having a unidirectional diving bezel inside a chronograph means I'll probably time small intervals using the bezel exclusively and never run the chrono. Like, I will use the bezel to time almost everything because it's easier to see, quicker to set, and frankly, when do you really have to time anything longer than an hour? So for me, I'd have the chronograph with the bezel along for the ride, or rather I'd have the bezel with the chronograph along for the ride.
Truly a utilitarian piece.
Yes, I know they did come up with a pure diver version of that watch the next year, but I like the chronograph. It's techie.
All right. And 50 pieces limited edition. Do they make one in a simple black, by the way? They don't.
They make one in a sort of navy blue with some yellow accents. That's probably the plainest one that they make of the new divers. They use, I want to say they still make, what was it, like the 15710? I think they still make that. So I think they do have a black version of the diver. I don't know if they have the diving chronograph.
Well, that was the question. Okay, well, good to know. Funky colors. If you want the chronograph diver, you gotta get it in a specific funky, or different degrees of funky.
Any color you like, as long as it's day glow. Okay, Fed, what else you got for me?
Well, number 3 is something a little bit out of left field, and actually left is that way. I don't know why I went this way. Left field, and
it's their left.
Well, it's true. Yeah. Well, thank you for making me look a little smarter than I was actually intending
with the
to
save.
It is the IWC Vintage Collection, so not true vintage. It is the Vintage Collection. IWC remade some models. I believe, was it 2009, 10?
Yeah, it was in production in 2009. It came out in 2008, ran to, I want to say, 2011, 12.
Okay.
So it had a short run, but 2008 was the beginning.
And it is the IWC Vintage Collection Aquatimer in the beautiful super compressor case with the in-house Albert Peloton winding system caliber. I think it was the caliber 8000 series of movements.
Yeah, the 80,000s?
The 80,000, yes, correct. Because the pilot's watches use the 90,000.
Well, I mean, honestly, at this point, IWC's got so many calibers between Salida, ETA, and their own in-house. Let's just be honest. When you're buying a dive watch like this, it's less about the movement.
It is, but it's got that great vintage style. It's got a little bit of those green highlights, inner rotating bezel, super compressor case with those sharp lugs that, I mean, it really looks like a period piece, just a little larger for modern day sensitivities on that great strap too.
Yeah, 44 millimeters. That can hold its own against just about anything, but it's true that the original was a 42, so we're not far off.
And it wears, I mean, it is 44, but it does wear a little bit smaller than what it is. And I love the vintage, what do you call it, material? It's not sailcloth. I mean, it is rubber, but it's got those, like that texture to it, the vintage dive straps.
The vintage strap, back in the 60s, they were usually tropic rubber, so it's got the tropic embossed pattern on it.
Exactly. And you know what? Nowadays, they're going for about 50 off retail pre-owned. I know we haven't really talked about pricing, but to me, that's such a great deal.
Well, I talked about pricing with the Pita Steam, so I would say absolutely pricing's a factor. Value is a function of desirability and price. So
absolutely.
I think this one's a nice blend of the two.
And I actually think, strangely enough, it's a display case back.
It's always interesting when you have a display case back on a diver. Omega Planet Ocean, I think, sort of set the standard for that in the modern era. AP finally got with the game in 2014. IWC ahead of its time.
Yeah, I mean, brands are recognizing, like, guys, no one's really using this as a tool. It's more of a luxury item. So, the display case back is a little bit of that luxury flair.
Okay. So I would say my counterpoint to that will be another Richemont Group product from IWC's cousin watchmaker, Jaeger LeCoultre. This is one that I will own, and I got to be honest with you guys, I don't love a lot of JLC dive watches. I'm not in love with the original Deep Sea. I'm not in love with the Polaris. I'm not in love with any of the Navy SEALs or the Master Compressor diving watches. So this is really an exception for me, both an exception to my usual kind of global love for JLC and the fact that I don't really love JLC divers. But the Master Compressor Memovox from the early 2000s, it was out of production by about 2010. I love it because it has my all-time favorite complication in the alarm. The alarm is the most useful complication. It has an internal rotating dive bezel, so it is a true diver. It's got the compressor crowns, so you don't have to fight with the crown when your hands are wet or sweaty. And that's not just a great diving feature, that's a great Miami feature.
It is. It is.
41 millimeters, 41 and a half in steel with a black dial. It's got a great look that wears with anything. Plus, I'll be honest, this is a high horology dive watch. It's a partially hand-finished, hand-regulated movement in there. It's the caliber 918. It's the latest in a long tradition of JLC alarms, even JLC diving alarms. I don't love the Polaris, but this is the heir to the Polaris. And like you said, value is a function of price and desirability, and this one, which you can pick up for about $5,000 to $6,000, is priced right on the pre-owned market.
Absolutely. And another thing I love about this particular watch is I love the fact that, yes, it comes on rubber and a calf strap, but I love the JLC bracelet.
Yeah, you got a couple of options with this, not just with the strap where you can get leather and you can get rubber and you can get steel, but in fact they made this watch in steel, they made this watch in rose gold, they made it in white gold, and they made it in platinum. So, you've got special with steel and then spectacular with the platinum and the blue dial. Price notwithstanding, that's the one I would buy.
Oh, I mean, I'd definitely go platinum with the blue dial.
Gosh, and it's got a solid case back. So that thing, even though it's 41 and a half in platinum, weighs a ton on the wrist. That's an awesome watch.
And guys, I know we already mentioned it, but we love the Submariner. It's a fantastic watch. But I think, when me and Tim get together and we just kind of talk watches like this, it's too much of an easy choice. So for all you guys that have a Submariner, I own one myself. It's a great watch, but it's too easy. Too easy to pick.
Yeah, and I love the blue and the green subs, so my tastes are so far off base relative to like the Rolex diehards, I may as well just keep my mouth shut.
And on that note, guys, what do you think? Leave a comment in the comment section below. What are your favorite dive watches and particular brownie points if you pick something off the beaten path?
Resonance Type 5.
Yeah, that is definitely off the beaten path. Actually, have you reviewed one of those yet?
Yeah, including the gray. I was at SIHH this year.
Is it on Watch You Want Watch Reviews?
Unfortunately, I was at SIHH in my very official and serious capacity as a member of the Govberg group, so it's not on Watch You Want anything.
Well, check out the Govberg Jewelers YouTube channel, but also check out Watch You Want Watch Reviews, where Tim's Talking Hand videos are back. There you go. And of course, Watch You Want on Instagram for your bite-sized amount of content if you don't have enough time for a video. Guys, thank you so much for sticking around for another episode of Federico Talks Watches, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Thanks for logging on.
Take care.